Chapter 9. Services Rendered. Lady Mormont and I turned to face the king, each of us dipping into a curtsy. "Your Grace," I said as I rose from my genuflection, putting a bright smile on my face. "It's been far too long since we've seen each other. And what a reunion it must be when I have to trek across the whole of the damn North to stop your kin from pissing away the good favor I've shown them," Robert growled with irritation. I bowed my head in understanding. "Apologies for that, Your Grace. I should have sent word that I could handle them on my own. You needn't have concerned yourself." Robert stopped a few feet from me, towering over me like some burly golem. He stared hard at me for a few moments before turning his attention to Mage. "Lady Mormont, I will need a space to speak with Lady Greyjoy privately." Mage nodded. "I know just the place, Your Grace. Please, follow me." She walked away from the beach with Robert and I in tow. A few minutes later, we were seated in the nearby dockmaster's building. The dockmaster and the few others tending the docks were escorted out. I sat on one side of the table, while Robert and Ned Stark sat on the other. Ned, stern-faced as ever, stared at me silently as we waited for Robert to begin. Robert crossed his massive arms. "Well, how did this all come about? I can't imagine your brothers felt that they were being treated unfairly." "Not at all," I assured him. "Even my brothers couldn't deny the prosperity the Iron Island has enjoyed since we began patrolling the coast of the Seven Kingdoms." "Then what prompted such a foolhardy idea to disturb the king's peace?" Ned asked pointedly. "I admit that was my fault," I sighed. "As you may have heard, Lord Stark, I am considered the mouthpiece for the drowned god. I was sent a vision in a dream one night, and that vision was of the 3 captain brothers of House Greyjoy attacking an island with a great bear on it. The drowned men believed this dream meant that my brothers should attack Bear Island." Robert slammed a fist on the table. "Damn it, woman! Why would you tell them such a thing? It wasn't long before your birth that your brothers were still reaving across the shores of the Seven Kingdoms. You all but told them to attack the North." Ned scowled, his forehead cracking into deep furrows as he considered my words and Robert's reaction. Even with his irritation, his voice remained steady. "Steady yourself, my king. Lady Greyjoy has been a stalwart ally ever since the rebellion. Let us hear her explanation before overreacting." Robert grumbled a moment before waving a hand at me. "Go on then. Continue." I bowed my head to Ned in thanks for reining in Robert's anger before continuing my explanation. I had no choice but to pass on the information in my dream. The drowned god does not brook delay, and his will crashes against my mind like the waves upon rocky shores. Until I do as he desires, I get no relief. However, after explaining my dream, I begged my brothers to ignore our god's desire. I looked up at Robert. "House Greyjoy and the Iron Island have benefited from taking our place in the protection of the Seven Kingdoms. We have been allies in good standing with the crown, and I like to think that your grace holds me dear in his heart for the role I played in your ascension. I consider you a beloved friend, and I did not want to jeopardize all of that simply for a fool's errand." Robert listened carefully, taking in my sincere tone, and weighed what he heard against the reality of the situation. He leaned back in his chair and looked down at me. "Then tell me this, Merida. If you spoke out against this attack, how is it your brothers still got leave to sail here?" I sighed and looked up regretfully. "My father gave them permission, Your Grace." Before Robert could react, I quickly added, "But I implore you, do not think poorly of him. After hearing the details of my dreams, my brothers were of a mood. Had he not given them permission, I believe one of them would have killed him and taken control of our house, then granted permission anyway. He had little real choice in the matter." "He still should not have done it," Ned said, ever dutiful to right and wrong, regardless of the nuances of the situation. "If it makes any difference, Lord Stark," I replied flatly. The moment my brothers left the room to begin their preparations, he commanded me to stop my brothers and send word to the king. He ordered this. Know what it would do to his own house? Robert asked. Say what you might about Robert, he could appreciate the nuance of a situation. Where Ned saw only black and white, and would not say that father's decision to send me in a warning wiped away the crime of allowing the attack in the first place. Robert could appreciate the decisions father had to make that evening. I nodded. He knew I would have to kill them to stop them. Robert's expression grew soft, with the cold realization that only someone who'd done things he'd not wanted to do in battle could have. His anger faded somewhat, and his tone became respectful. And did you? I reached down to my belt and pulled Victarion's axe from it and set it on the table. My brother Victarion died by my very own hands. Balon burned on his ship. Euron was not on the field, and his fleet was nowhere to be found. But 2 of my brothers are dead. All but 2 of my cousins are dead. In my service to the crown, I am responsible for the near extinction of House Greyjoy. Robert took in a deep breath as he considered a proper response. You have indeed done the kingdom a great service, Lady Greyjoy. Such efforts deserve recognition. Her father's crime must still be answered for, Ned reminded Robert. Damn it, Ned, Robert barked. You heard the woman. She's only just come away from killing her family. Give her some time to settle with one issue before saddling her with another. It was treason, Your Grace, Ned insisted. Robert glared at Ned, but before he could bark a retort, I chimed in. Lord Stark is correct, Your Grace? My father gave the command. He knew there was no real choice that evening. He would either be killed then by his sons, or later by your headsman's axe. But I would make a request if I may. I'll hear it, Robert said while looking at me, but I could tell by his tone that he meant the statement for Ned. My father did give permission for my brothers to attack Bear Island. I will not deny this, I began. However, he also commanded me to stop them, and insisted that you be made aware of the situation so that the Mormonts could be forewarned. I ask with these facts in mind that you do not order his execution. I beg you to consider allowing him to take the black. He has done his best to keep the peace for nearly 2 generations. Allow him to continue doing so at the wall. Robert turned and looked at Ned. I see not reason to deny this request. Do you, Ned? Ned shook his head. No, Your Grace. Lady Greyjoy's request is a fair one, but this would create a new issue. The rulership of the Iron Island would fall to the traitor, Euron. Robert nodded as he considered the problem. Aeron is also able to take control of the island, Ned suggested. He cannot and will not, I said quickly. And they the hell not? Robert asked, never enjoying talk of political nuance. He's not a traitor and is your father's son. He's one of the drowned men, Your Grace, I explained. They forswear land and title when they take up their roles as one of the priests in our religion. Robert cursed under his breath. And I don't want your cousins to take command, assuming one of them is a male. They're traitor seed, and I would never be able to trust them. Your Grace, I said softly, smiling up at him. Perhaps Lord Stark and I can think of a solution while you speak with the Mormonts to ensure the Iron Island compensates them for any lost lives properly. I know you don't enjoy matters such as this. We can figure this out. A great sigh of relief escaped the king. As ever, Merida, you know my heart on the matter. I will leave you two to it. Do not leave until you've got all the details settled. He stood quickly and pat Ned on the shoulder as he left. I'll send for some food and ale for the 2 of you. Once Robert had taken his leave, I looked at Ned and smiled. You don't think my God actually speaks to me, do you, Lord Stark? You may call me Ned, Merida, he replied with a sigh. The king is gone, so there is no need for formality any longer. We can speak plainly. I noticed you didn't answer my question, Ned, I chuckled. I make no presumptions one way or another about what one's God does or doesn't do, Ned replied neutrally. I leaned forward slightly, my expression growing mischievous. May I prove it to you? If only so that you believe me about my dream. You've no need to, he said, but if it makes you feel better, what can your God tell you about me that you should not know? That you do not have a bastard in Winterfell, I chuckled. You have someone who was the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. I leaned in and whispered the important part. Lord Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name. Even as the name left my mouth, Ned Stark, the ever-dour sentinel of the North, panicked as he looked around to make sure that no one else was within earshot of us. When he was certain of that we were alone, he leaned forward and growled, "How do you know that?" I laughed, seeing him in a state of panic for the first time. "I told you, Ned. The drowned god shows me things." "You will not speak of that to anyone," he demanded, slapping his hand on the table. "I never have and never will," I replied honestly. "But I needed you to know that I've been telling the truth about my dream. It is important." "I did not doubt your sincerity," Ned sighed dejectedly with the knowledge that someone else was aware of the true nature of his son. "It seemed like you weren't willing to believe me even if you thought my story sincere," I shrugged. "However, I believe I have a solution that will solve the matter of the Iron Island and who controls our fleet." "Tell me," Ned said, his tone grateful that I had moved on from the subject of his secret. "I propose that the king name me ruler of the Iron Island under the name of a new house," I said as I put on a professional air. "This means that no Greyjoy can lay claim to the island and show his faith in me." I had to stop myself from giggling as Ned leaned forward, pinching his fingers together. "One does not simply start a new house. It is folly. Not without a husband in your case. It would be seen as a stopgap at best." I took a moment to compose myself, playing it off as if I was considering what he'd said. "Well, I should have been a long time married by now. I suppose the king could provide me with a husband who would help me establish this new house." "The king cannot force a man to marry you for any reason," Ned retorted, his matter-of-fact nature so welcome after spending years with people who seemed to look at the negative of most situations. Ned was simply practical and straightforward. "Perhaps not," I smirked, "but the man's father can." Ned arched a brow. "I take it you have someone in mind?" "I think Robert would be happy to help me in this matter as it would please his good father," I chuckled. "All he would have to do is—" "I admire your aspiration, my friend," Ned cut me short. "But Sir Jaime is a knight of the King's Guard, and cannot marry nor sire children." I rocked back in my chair and belted out a laugh. "Then it is a good thing I didn't think to marry him." "No, my dear Lord Stark. I was referring to the younger brother. Someone I'm told is closer to my own stature." "The imp?" Ned asked, seeming to disapprove of the idea if his tone and expression had anything to say about it. "I do not think someone with his reputation is a fitting match for you." "People say many things," I replied with a dismissive wave of my hand. "But Tyrion has a sharp and cunning mind. Dwarves need such things to be able to survive in this world. And when given the opportunity, he proves exceptionally well-suited to managing the affairs of anything he's assigned to. I'm told the sewers of Casterly Rock flow better than any in the Seven Kingdoms after he was tasked to oversee them." "Still," Ned hesitated, "he has a reputation for debaucherous behavior." "What single man in this world doesn't?" I asked with a chuckle. "I care little and less for his past. My focus is on the future. And having a Lannister as my husband, even if he may be called the least loved Lannister, will still mean that the Iron Island will have one of the strongest allies in all of Westeros to call upon." "That is a very practical way to think of the matter," Ned sighed. He sat back and considered everything we'd spoken of. "You ask for quite the reward for your services," I shrugged. "As I see it, Robert still owes me for helping him during the rebellion. After all, a book is hardly worth turning the tide at Storm's End and assisting with the taking of King's Landing." stopping another rebellion before it really started, and all but wiping out my house in the process, just adds to his tab. It is not wise to hold old debts over a king's head, Ned shook his head. What good is an old debt if you cannot call it in? I smiled. Besides, it will make Tywin happy to be rid of Tyrion. You and I both know it. He will think he's sending his dwarf son off to the backwaters of the Iron Island, never to be heard from again. Robert will only benefit from this move. And what of your surviving cousins? Ned asked. They are still traitors' blood. I shook my head. I will not have them hard or ostracized. They are young still, one 10 and 3 years of age, and the other only a few years older. They were not even on the island when all of this began. They were out on patrol. If I must, I will adopt them into my new house and have them forswear the actions of their fathers. I can admire your dedication to them, if nothing else, Ned replied. He thought on the matter for a few moments before nodding. Very well. This sounds like an agreeable solution that we can present to Robert, but reparations will still need to be made for any loss of life on the part of the Mormonts. I nodded in full agreement. Of course. Whatever the king believes is fair will be granted. I have no issue with that. Then it seems we have little more to discuss, Ned replied. The only thing we must do now is convince Robert of the plan. I laughed. I hardly think we'll need to convince him. If the two of us have agreed to it, he won't want the details. He'll just wave his hand and say,